Well, the White House says Israel has agreed to put in place 4-hour daily humanitarian pauses in the fighting zones in northern Gaza. And the pause would allow Palestinians still trapped by Israeli shelling to flee to southern Gaza along 2 humanitarian corridors. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the pauses are only scattered and fighting will continue. He also says Israel has no intention of reoccupying the narrow strip of territory. What he calls a credible force would be needed to enter the enclave if necessary. And Gaza health authorities say over 10,800 people have been killed since Israel began its relentless bombardment of Gaza in retaliation of the Hamas surprise October the 7th assault. And Israel's death toll stands at 1,400. U.S. diplomat for the Middle East, Barbara Leaf, said Gaza's death toll could be even higher, but the bodies can only be counted after the fighting stops. 3 hospitals, including the al-Shifa medical complex in Gaza City, were attacked, and this has led to a large number of casualties and more damage to facilities already starved of supplies and fuel to treat tens of thousands of wounded. And in Palestine's West Bank, dozens were killed in Jenin City and its refugee camps as Israeli forces stepped up their raids. Now, Associated Press correspondent Sam Mednick reports from Jerusalem.
Overnight, Israeli strikes hit Gaza while its ground troops battled Hamas within Gaza City, and the fighting continued into Thursday. I was in southern Israel today at the border with Gaza, and the sound of shelling as well as airstrikes was constant. Much of this fighting is taking place at Gaza's biggest hospital, the al-Shifa hospital within Gaza City. Israel says that this is Hamas's command and control center. Hamas says that Israel is just using that as a precursor in order to strike it. Still, there are about 60,000 people sheltering in this hospital. Many are looking for refuge, others are severely injured. On Thursday, Israel did agree to these 4-hour daily humanitarian pauses to allow people from the north to go into the south. This comes while officials from Egypt, the United Nations, as well as a Western diplomat have said they might be inching closer towards a larger ceasefire deal that would be about 3 days in exchange for around a dozen hostages. This would be brokered by Egypt, the United States, as well as Qatar. Israel's Prime Minister, however, Benjamin Netanyahu, said he's completely against a ceasefire only if it is in exchange for all of the hostages. I spoke to a hostage negotiator who was key in the release of Gilad Shalit's release, who was an Israeli soldier taken by Hamas for 5 years. He said that it doesn't make sense right now for Israel to do the ceasefire while they are fighting in the heart of Gaza because it would expose them. They'd have to move and go somewhere safer. It is only worth it if it is in exchange for a large number of hostages, more like 150. As fighting in Israel continues, it is escalating in other parts as well, including along the West Bank, where it has spiked since the beginning of the war. On Thursday, Palestinian officials said that Israel raided Jenin City. This is part of an increased raid by Israelis into the West Bank for what they say is to root out militancy. The United Nations says that at least 150 people have been killed by Israeli soldiers in the West Bank since the beginning of the fighting, and 8 Palestinians have been killed by settlers. Palestinians I've spoken to in the West Bank say that settlers are aggressively trying to get them off their land. One man named Tarek said that people are being harassed and detained. They're not allowed to move around freely. He said he feels like he is living inside a prison. Sam Mednick with the Associated Press for CGTN in Jerusalem.